All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome to another edition of the Game Time Radio Podcast. I'm your host, E-Dub, and we are talking about tonight's episode of The Last Dance. Two more episodes in the books, and man, they covered a lot of ground tonight. For my money, I think that episodes 5 and 6 might be the best episodes out there. Um, I'm really, truly enjoying this documentary on the Chicago Bulls, bringing back a lot of nostalgia, right? I tweeted, I didn't tweet. I updated my status a little bit on Facebook and kind of tweeted a little bit during that time. But man, so much nostalgia going through, watching all this stuff that happened in the 90s, reliving it again and again. And like I said last week, man, when I was talking to my buddies, Derek and Raphael, this wasn't a good time for me. I was pulling against Michael Jordan and the Bulls. A lot of those championships, a lot of those times where Jordan was dominating. I was pulling for the other squad, man. I hated Jordan, but I always I wanted to be like him. I wanted to walk like him. And seeing all of this stuff from the 90s, from the commercials and to all that stuff, I wanted to be like Mike, man. We all did if you grew up playing any type of ball. But, man, brought back a lot of memories, man. So just wanted to get in and talk a little bit about what went on tonight. That first hour, we'll start with the first hour. And if you want to get in on the give me your thoughts on tonight's episode. Let me just put my little cord in here on tonight's episode. Excuse me for that. My laptop battery is in need of some love and attention. But what were your thoughts on tonight's episode? I thought that they covered a lot of ground. Man, they did. They just covered so much. That first hour, they start talking about MJ and that All-Star game back in '96, and you see a young Kobe Bryant. And for me personally, it hit me. Look, man, it still feels weird to see Kobe's, man. It still feels weird to see Kobe Bryant. And I got to be honest with me, man. I got to be honest with you. It's still hard for me to watch Kobe Bean Bryant, man. Like, it's hard to believe that he's gone. Just seeing that time, knowing that, Kobe and Mike was going at it. Kobe had the fro. And Kobe's in there. He's interviewed, and he's like, look, man, people talk about Mike and everything, and me. He's like, without Mike, I don't get 5 without him. He said, I don't get the 5 rings without him. Because if you knew anything about ball, you knew anything about Kobe patterned his game after Mike. Of course, he took elements of Pippen and other guys, but the main guy that everybody looked up to was Mike, Man, that was just crazy to seeing Kobe out there like that, man. So, of course, as always, man, rest in peace to Kobe. That was a great All-Star game. MJ got the MVP, and man, that was just a crazy time, man. Crazy time to be alive, like the kids say. From there, talked about Jordan and went into when he went into the Garden, and he won, and he wore those Air Jordan 1s. Now, those Air Jordan 1s was cold, man. They were cold. But a part of the doc that I did not know was Mike talking about how his feet were bleeding during the game. And I was like, yo, is that a reflection of the basketball shoe? Or is it a reflection of how hard you was balling? Either way, my man was balling that game, and I forget what he had. I think he had like 40-something that game. And it was just crazy to see Mike talking all this trash after the game. He's talking trash to Patrick Ewing. He didn't play for some reason. He's still talking trash to him. And I enjoy one thing I enjoy about the doc. I enjoy the off the court moments. Those moments where he's sitting and talking trash with his teammates, the moments where he's gambling with security guards and talking trash to them. Mike talked a lot of trash, y'all. He talked a lot of trash. But it was just dope just seeing all of that, man. Shout out to Patrick Ewing, Georgetown University. It did have a little segment on David Falk. If you don't know about David Falk, you got a small glimpse into the genius that is David Falk. David Falk is David. I always say I call him David Falk the God. Like he is that much of a visionary. Like Michael Jordan, in my opinion, Mike was good. Mike had a lot of things going for him as far as like on the court. Like you can't deny. But from the marketing standpoint, he doesn't become the global icon without David Falk, right? Like he doesn't become the global icon. He doesn't become the global icon without David Falk, because David Falk introduces him to Nike. He tells, "Hey, look, man, I need you to take this meeting." He went to his folks. He went to Mama Jordan. He went to Daddy Jordan, and they were the ones that told him that, "Hey, you got to take this call with Nike." And I wonder what life would be like if he didn't take the call to Nike. Like, would he have ended up with Reebok or Converse? We'll never know. But shout out to David Falk and everything that he's done, everything that he is. If you don't know about David Falk, do some research on your boy. The boy is a bad boy. Salute to Dolores Jordan. Salute to Michael Jordan's pops. Making MJ take that meeting with Nike. Like, again, like it's crazy to think, like, what if he doesn't take the meeting with Nike? What if he doesn't take the meeting with Nike? Samantha wants to say hello to everybody. Hi. Say hi. Say goodnight. Hi. It's past their bedtime. But yeah, I mean, the thought of David Falk and the Nike element with Michael Jordan it's hard to imagine Mike without Nike. Like, can you imagine Mike without Nike? It's crazy. It then brought into the Spike Lee element. They had Spike Lee direct his commercials. And again, like if you weren't living this, like it's going to hit you a little bit different. Like at the time, as somebody who was living it, it was so nostalgic to see the Spike Lee commercial. It's got to be the shoes, money. It's got to be the shoes. Like we all remember those commercials. Like everybody that's like 40 plus, like late 30s, you remember those commercials because they were so iconic. The one with, I don't know whether that was a Gatorade commercial, the Be Like Mike commercial. Sometimes I drink. I was singing a song while the commercial was playing, and my wife was just looking at me like, yo, it is that iconic. Those commercials back then, they resonated with my generation during that time, man. But it was just such a good feeling to see all of that and to see the commercial aspect. And again, Mike doesn't become that global icon without one Mr. David Falk, man. He's the one that decided to market him the way he marketed Mike. Because Mike didn't care nothing about playing. Mike just wanted to play ball and win championships, right? He just wanted to play ball and win championships. And David Falk had the vision. He had the vision to make him a global icon, man. So salute to David Falk, and salute to Spike Lee, man. Those commercials were bomb, man. Excellent. What else did they go into? Gave the Knicks, got how you talked about BJ. Around this time, this is the third championship run. Mike is seeing the game from a different level, right? So you had even BJ Armstrong talk about in one of the interviews. He's like, look, man, Mike was playing a different game than us. And I always tell people this, the difference between the greats and like just the regular, like super, like really good ball players, they understand game flow. And that's what Michael understood around this time. He understood game flow. He understood, okay, I may be 2 for 20, but come the fourth quarter, it's go time. Like it's go time, and he understood that. And I always say that's game flow. Certain players, not everybody has that. Kobe had it. LeBron has it. There's certain guys, and even D Wade at a certain point in his career, he had it, to understand, okay, fourth quarter, it's time to go get buckets. And it was just amazing to see the trajectory of Michael Jordan in this doc. 92, 93, that was probably when Mike was at. It's hard to believe, like, you look at Mike's career and you ask yourself, where was the like the apex of Mike's career? I always say it was like doing that third championship. Like the two championships, like the second three-peat, he was good, but like to me, like peak Mike was like that third, I don't know, man, like that third championship. To me, it was like peak Mike. I don't know. Yeah. And then went into that first hour, it ended up talking about the USA Dream Team. And of course, the whole thing with Isaiah goes on, the whole thing with, should Isaiah have been on the team? Of course, Isaiah should have been on the team. You're a fool if you don't think he should have been on the team. Isaiah should have clearly been on the team, but he wasn't on the team. And we can thank Mike for that. Well, Mike said, look, man, Mike said, hey, it's not all his fault. It's not all his fault. And, who's to say? One person's story is another person's, his truth or whatever. Isaiah definitely should have been on the team. For whatever reason, he wasn't. Well, we know why he wasn't. Mike was saying it was more of a chemistry issue. And, I mean, I can believe that. I can respect that. Hey, that's a story. He's sticking to it. He should have been on the squad. But I enjoyed hearing the story of seeing the guys compete in that USA practice and that whole Olympics thing with Tony Kukoc. My man Tony got a raw deal, man. Tony got a raw deal. Tony Kukoc was out here just trying to play basketball, win championships for his Croatia, and Tony Kukoc went out there, and Mike and Scotty, they was like, man, we about to give it to this dude. And I remember that. And the thing about it, man, like they locked him up. Like he didn't have a good game that first game, but like Tony was nice. Like Tony Kukoc was that dude, lefty. Shout out to the lefties. I'm a little partial. Shout out to the lefties. He could shoot, he could pass, he could dribble. He was like a 6'10", 6'9" point guard. He was like a knockoff version of Magic. I mean, he wasn't Magic, but he was tall, and you didn't see guys his size with that skill set back then. Now it's nothing for guys 6'9", 6'10" to handle the ball. But yeah, they gave Tony the business. They gave everybody the business, And to me, that was the best thing for international basketball, because it showed the gap of how we do things over here in the U.S. and how they do things over here overseas. And now that gap is like this. Like it's no different. Them boys over in overseas, there's no different, man. They start playing ball at like 14, 15. And by the time they're 18, 19 years old, they don't been playing against old men their whole lives. So that dream team did a lot for the NBA from a global standpoint. And again, man, Tony got kind of a raw deal. But it is what it is, man. Tony came over to the league and they got along, and he won championships. He was a vital part of a lot of those championships. And I always liked Tony Kukoc as a player. And, kudos to Tony Kukoc, man. That first hour went so incredibly quick. I was like, there's no way the second hour can go that quick. And the second hour went even quicker than the first hour. And I'm watching, I'm like, yo, man, no way that's been an hour. No way that's been an hour, man, because it's that good. It's that riveting. Now we're 6 episodes in. We're about to start hour number 2. And for my money, I still believe the documentary that OJ did is still the best documentary I've ever seen. But this is slowly creeping up in the top 5. I love this. I still love the 2 Escobars on 30 for 30, but that's a whole nother podcast. So we get into hour 2. Hour two is it starts out with the book The Jordan Rules, written by that journalist who covered the Bulls, Sam. I don't know if it was Sam Smith or I forget whatever his name is, but he writes the book, and he's pretty much just talking about like the Jordan that nobody really knows about, right? So like nobody's perfect, and he wants to. I think I don't know his intentions because I don't know Sam. I don't know the writer like that. I didn't read him like I did some of the other writers coming up. So I don't know his intentions. I imagine his intentions were probably to make money, which isn't a bad thing. You know, we all out here trying to make money. But he he said that he just wanted to show kind of like the human aspect of MJ and trying to show like, hey man, this guy's not an angel, whatever. So it goes into some of the stuff he did in practice, some of the things that he did as you know, with the gambling and everything. And you know, and the funny part of this section to me was this. Mike was like, "Oh yeah, man, that was Horace that leaked that information." Like without a doubt, he was like, "Oh yeah, that was Horace." Like just here's the bus, here's Horace Grant. Just immediately throws Horace Grant under the bus, right? He's like, "Yeah, Horace leaked that information." Scotty starts talking, and Scotty kind of I don't know if Scotty said Horace's name out of his mouth, but he kind of insinuates that it was Horace. And then Horace was like, "Hey man, Sam was my guy, but I ain't say none of that." After he said that, I was like Horace, you said that, bruh. You said that, bruh. Whatever they said, you said that. And there's nothing wrong with but just own up to it, bruh. Like you said it. Like I believe Mike and Scotty on this one. I don't believe Horace. And the fact that Horace said that him and Sam had a good relationship, you leaked that, bruh. Like I know how journalism works. You leaked that. But yeah, so the whole Jordan Rules came out, and it went into it started talking about Jordan's gambling addiction and Jordan's you know, his gambling and all that. And I'm gonna say this: look, everybody and their mama knew Mike had a problem. Everybody and their mama knew Mike was a big gambler. Mike was, I mean, everybody knew it, you know. And the crazy thing in the doc, Mike was like, "Yeah, I like to gamble." You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get hurt nobody. You know, I'm not breaking no laws. I like to gamble. And I don't think what the public realizes is that if Mike were to gamble and to get into some situation where he owes somebody $1.2 million, it's totally different than me gambling and owing somebody $1.2 million. Because if I owe somebody $1.2 million, guess what they not gonna get? $1.2 million. But to Mike, that's like 10 bucks. You know what I'm saying? Like to Mike, that's like 10 bucks. 97, 98, I gotta go back and look at exactly what his salary was. I know like toward the end of his career, he was making like 30 something million a year just on the basketball front. But 1.2 was nothing to Mike. Like that's like they said in Coming to America, that's pocket money. That's pocket money to Mike. Like, I mean, that's not no money for Mike. Mike got an issue with gambling, and I think that he's not gonna come out and be like, "Hey man, I got an issue with gambling," because that's what gamblers don't come out with the issue and say like, "Hey, I got an issue with gambling." But we all know Mike got an issue with gambling, but that's his thing. We all got our own issues, so I wasn't gonna bang him on that. It was interesting to see how much that bothered him, right? And so I'm not making any comparisons to him and any certain guy that wears 23 now. However, I will say this: like all the scrutiny that he took back in 93, 94, imagine, right? Imagine what it would be like in 2020 if the top player were to be under that type of scrutiny nowadays. Like, I'm not saying that, like, you know, whatever he went through wasn't like bad or whatever, but like nowadays, where you don't have to worry about 5 or 6 beat writers. You got to worry about 20 to 25 other reporters and people with blogs. And everywhere you go, people have their camera out. Everywhere you go, your every move is videotaped. It's photographed. It's a lot different nowadays, right? And so I'm not saying that he couldn't handle it, but I'm saying it would have been totally different if he would have lived in this day and age where he thought the cameras were on him in 93? Bruh, you thought the cameras were on you in 93. In 2020, these dudes can't do anything without it being on TMZ, without it showing up on Instagram, Facebook. You have to walk like an angel. That's why it's a credit, like, to some of these athletes, how they don't get in trouble. Like, they just like, I just stay in the room and just chill, because there's just so much out there nowadays. So it gets back into the basketball element of it, and they talk about this series with the Knicks. Let me take a deep breath, because for those who don't know, even though I give my Knicks fans a hard time, I used to be a big Knicks fan. Back in the day, I was a Patrick Ewing guy because I like Georgetown. I was a Patrick Ewing guy, and I pulled for the Knicks. I pulled for Mike against all his championships. Even tonight, while I'm watching and he's hitting all those threes against the Blazers, I'm reliving that as I was seventh grade, I think. I'm reliving that as a seventh grader all over again. I'm yelling. I'm like, yo, I'm telling my wife, I'm like, look how wide open he is on that three. How many threes does he have to hit before Cliff jumps out on him? But I didn't realize that, look, man, Cliff couldn't jump out on him because Cliff wasn't a defensive guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jordan scored. He did what he wanted to in that game, and it was so embarrassing to even pull for the Blazers in that series. Like, he literally showed that, and he said it, and he was honest. He was like, you know what? I felt kind of offended that they put me and Clyde on the same, like they was matching us against each other. I was like, dang. But he went out and he proved it. Like, I mean, they destroyed the Blazers. And that game where he gave Magic the shrug, I remember I was like, man, I was almost in tears, man. I felt Mike was doing that to me personally. I felt he was doing that to me personally. But yeah, man, that was a tough series, man. I'm sitting here looking at the images and just imagining that series all over again, and it was crazy because that Portland team was a good team. Like, I can still remember that squad. You had Terry Porter, you had Clyde Drexler, you had Jerome Kersey, Buck Williams, Kevin Duckworth off the bench. You had Cliff Robinson. That Cleveland team was good. It wasn't the Bulls. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have Mike. You know. And before I got into the Portland thing, I wanted to talk about the Knicks. And so it went into the showdown with the Knicks. Shout out to my Knicks fans that I give so much grief to, who don't realize that I actually used to be part of y'all. Shout out to my guy Dwayne. We used to go back and forth. Shout out to my guy Andell and Rock and all them guys I give grief. I was with y'all back in 92, 93, man. I was with y'all. In those Knicks series, one of my favorite images is that image of Michael Jordan and Xavier McDaniel going like forehead to forehead. You know, Xavier's talking his trash, Mike's talking his trash, and it was just like the essence of 90s basketball, right? And yeah, man, it was just those battles where the Knicks were like, look, man, we're knocking on the door, right? The Knicks were knocking on the door like the Bulls were knocking on the door when they were trying to unseat the Pistons. The only difference is the Knicks didn't have Michael Jordan. Oh, man. And then I'm going to tell you what took me out, y'all. I'm going to tell you what took me out. When they showed the infamous Charles Smith play. And if you know anything about basketball, you know what I'm talking about. The infamous Charles Smith play, where he gets blocked like 3 times. He misses the ball. He misses the layup like another time. That, oh my gosh, like Charles Smith. I said, like, to this day, like, if I see him on the streets, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. I just don't understand how you can get that close to the hoop and have that many opportunities as an NBA player and come up empty. Shout out to my guy Derek in the chat. I'm trying to look at the chat stuff, but it's kind of, I got to kind of scramble. My man Derek said the Pistons made the Bulls that tough. The Knicks came hard. They did, man. They came hard. It wasn't from a lack of effort. A few bounces here, a few bounces there. The Knicks, let me tell you something, man. It always seemed like, okay, in every championship, you have to have a little bit of luck. Not a little, just like a little bit of luck, right? You got to have a Paxson to knock down those shots. You got to have a Steve Kerr to knock down those shots. You got to have things to kind of bounce your way. The Knicks, they never had anything bounce their way. Never. From the Charles Smith play to John Starks in the finals to Patrick Ewing missing that layup against Indiana. Every time the ball bounced for the Knicks, it bounced the opposite way. So, like, I understand the Knicks and Knicks player and the Knicks fans and what they have to deal with, but yeah, man, that Knicks series, man, it took me back. It took me back. And, man, it was crazy. Second hour ended with the championship against the Phoenix Suns. Several things I remember about that championship is that, and I told Nataya, even as a child, I understood what Mike was doing from a schematic standpoint. They would switch and throw different guys at Mike. They would throw KJ on him. They would throw Danny Ainge on him. They would throw Dan Marley on him. Those were the 3 guys on him. Richard Dumas would take a shot on him. Mike, in his wisdom and understanding basketball, he had something for all of them. And I think out of all those guys, the guys who probably playing the best was probably Richard Dumas. Like, unless you know basketball, you don't know much about Richard Dumas. Richard Dumas probably played Mike the best in that series because here's what he would do. When they matched up against KJ, Kevin Johnson, shout out to, is he still the mayor of Sacramento? I think he's still the mayor of Sacramento. Shout out to Kevin Johnson. When KJ would play him, he would just shoot over KJ. Because KJ was 6'1", and he was fast. So Mike couldn't necessarily get around him, but he would just overshoot him. He would back him down all day long. Boom, 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 boom. When Dan Marley would stick him, Dan was his side. Dan was about 6'5", 6'6". So he couldn't necessarily shoot over him like he could shoot over KJ, but he was so much faster. So he can get his spacing with Dan, get off any shot he wanted to. And then it was just a game of chess, and they couldn't stop. I posted an article I wrote 2 years ago in 2018 on this series. What I did in 2018, I have a list of games that I went back and I looked at as a grown man because I had a series on my blog. Shout out to the 285. I had a list of games where I went back and I viewed them as an adult. Because the premise was I look at basketball much differently now as a 41-year-old man as I did when I was a 13, 14-year-old kid. And I was like, what do I see now in this game? So I went back, I viewed a bunch of games on YouTube, and I just wrote down my thoughts about what I saw as the game, as an older man, especially as somebody who covers sports. I broke down the last play when John Paxson hit that shot in Game 6 against the Phoenix Suns. And that play broke down as a result of, one, Mr. Charles Barkley overstepping and he stepped out of where he was supposed to be defensively, and it threw the whole Phoenix Suns schematic defensive game plan off on that one play. It was all because of Charles Barkley. What happened was, I think Pippen or somebody beat Charles off the dribble, right? I think he went for a pump fake or he did something to get himself out of defensive positioning. So what happened was, because he was out of position, other players had to step up, and it brought them out of position. So once Charles was out of position, Mark West had to step up, and all the Bulls had to do was rotate the ball and find the open man. Only problem was that's what the Bulls have been doing for the last year, ever since Phil instituted the triangle. The triangle was designed to get the best shot available. So Barkley oversteps, everybody rotates over. It comes in a Pippen. Pippen draws in the defense, sucks in the defense. They find Paxson for the wide open three-point dagger. Bulls win the championship. Phoenix loses at home in typical Phoenix Suns fashion. And I was sick to my stomach yet again. And the crazy thing about that, Phoenix still had another shot to, like, take a shot to win the game. They didn't even get the shot off. Like, they draw up a play for KJ. He goes in the middle, and I think Horace Grant blocks him. And then, like, it ends up in Oliver Miller's hand. He shoots, like, a fadeaway three, like, as time expires. And, yeah, man, it was a good finals, though, because you have that game, too, where they go into triple overtime. Good finals. But now you're seeing, after that first three-peat, how everything is starting to weigh on Michael from an emotional standpoint. Like, he's got three. It's like, okay, I finally did something Magic and Isaiah and Bird, all them cats weren't able to necessarily do. And you're starting to see it weigh on him a little bit. And, again, I thought that episodes 5 and 6 tonight were probably one of the better episodes of the documentary. I thought they were thorough. I thought the story of him gambling had to be told. I didn't know, since I know that Mike is pulling a lot of these strings, I didn't know whether they were going to go into that. But they did. And Mike, he owned it to an extent, but we all kind of know what it is. We all kind of know what it is. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to next week and seeing exactly what is in store for next week. But again, tonight was another great doc. Shout out to my brother-in-law, Danny. I didn't see your stuff in the chat, man. He got a problem with me thinking my OJ documentary was the best. Yeah, let me tell you this. And this doesn't have to do with anything with The Last Dance or anything with Chicago Bulls. That O.J. Simpson documentary, Made in America, that 5-part series, is the absolute best documentary in the history of documentaries. And I'm not going to relent. We're not going back and forth on this. The O.J. Simpson Made in America documentary is the best documentary to ever be documented. It's not up for debate. The way that doc chronologized the O.J. Simpson story and how it ran the parallels of his story and the racial elements through time and how it synchronized both of those two stories and the music. Oh, it was just amazing. It was amazing. I might have to rewatch it this week now that you done talked about me, brother Danny. Yeah, man, I might have to do that. But I just wanted to come on here real quick, talk on this documentary that has been really well. And we're going to be back next week. Shout out to everybody that was in the chat room that joined. My man Jamal. I see Tarek, my man Kevin, all those guys, my guy Derek, all those guys in the chat room. We're going to be back next week talking episodes 7 and 8 next week. We're almost there, guys. Almost near the end. So we appreciate you guys for checking us out. Make sure you have liked the Game Time Radio Facebook page. We're going to be going live on here and just put more content up as usual. And make sure you're following us on all of our social media platforms. On Twitter, we are at GT Radio 1100. That is our Twitter @ if you're on Twitter, for those who tweet. Facebook, we're on the Facebook page. So if you're viewing this, make sure you take some time and like the Game Time Radio page, as we'll be abreast as to all that stuff that we have going on down the pipe. We also have a podcast for the Hawks Beat and a podcast for the 285 that's coming very soon. So while we're in pandemic, time to get out this stuff, man. Time to get out all these podcasts and all these creative juices. Time to get them flowing. But We appreciate you guys for coming through. Appreciate everyone for in the chat room and who checked out the doc and who interacted with us tonight. We'll see you guys next Sunday. Like we always say, like I used to say in the show, let me see if I can do it back on the radio show. For those who used to listen to the radio show, I used to have a sign out. And at the end of every show, I said this. I'm going to try to see if I still remember it. God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. And if you don't know him, you need to find him and show him love, because that's all he's showing you. I think that's it. It's your boy E-Dub for the Game Time Radio Podcast. We'll see you when we see you. Peace and love.